Blaney, that beard is gnarly, bud.
Holy cow, that's weird. Damn, I might
Appreciate it.
Let's try again.
You're posting about
well,
your
Daniel, I
putting.
tell you, it's weird seeing you in a Toyota shirt.
Yeah, it's a good addition. I'm digging it. What I was gonna say was your putting's off because your weight balance is off. That's why.
Top heavy.
Top heavy.
Dude, my dog. Everybody. I swear that's all he sits on now. Is a damn putting guy.
I love it.
Okay, folks, so as we're waiting for Brad to join, I think we can go ahead and get started. We are joined here this morning by a talented panel of drivers who have all competed for Brad Keselowski Racing and the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series back in the day. And we have everybody together in the same room. And the panel includes Ryan Blaney, Chase Briscoe, Tyler Reddick, and Daniel Hemric. And Ryan, let's start with you. Talk about your days in competing for Brad Keselowski Racing and how that got you ready for your success in the NASCAR Cup Series.
Yeah, well, thanks for joining, everybody, and it's a pretty cool story you're doing. But yeah, so I got with Brad's truck team in the middle of 2012. I was just kind of starting to do some ARCA stuff in K&N in 2011, and then the start of 2012, my dad was running Cup Series for Tommy Baldwin, and we ran some it was nationwide back then races for them, and in that kind of period, Parker Kligerman was driving for Brad, and they were looking to do something different, and just really the timing was really fortunate for me, for where we were running pretty decent in Tommy's stuff, and Brad came to me. I'll never forget, he came up to me after a Kentucky race one time and talked to me all the way back to the garage. And I didn't know at the time that he was kind of interviewing me to drive his trucks, and sat down with he and Wayne Sederington was another gentleman's name who was a big part of that race team at the time, and had dinner with them one night, and it just kind of kept rolling from there, and finished out 2012 with those guys. And also that led into the Penske thing. I signed with Penske as well as Brad's truck team, and then ran full-time for Brad in 2013 and 14. So that truck team, it opened up a lot of doors. Obviously, a lot of drivers are on call right now, and a lot of us, are in, Cup or Xfinity and at really good homes. And he's done a lot for young drivers, and it's a shame to turn it down. But I'll never forget, I owe Brad a big debt, and he was a big part of getting me rolling really in the NASCAR world.
Chase, how was Brad Keselowski Racing influential in your development?
Yeah, it was huge. For me, it was just cool to get a drive for Brad, because when I actually moved to North Carolina, the first shop I started volunteering at was Brian and Bob Keselowski. So for me, for it to all come back full circle and get to drive for Brad and really get my first shot in NASCAR, that was my first opportunity at, in one of the top 3 series. It was obviously a top organization, and, kind of same thing as Ryan. I remember I'd won the Chicago race in the ARCA series, and they asked me to stay over, and Brad came and introduced himself the next day. And then a couple weeks later, go to Kansas, and same thing. He comes and sits me down in his motorhome and talks about, how the sport's kind of an elevator, and, once you get to the top, you got to send it back down. And that's what he wanted to do for me. And, truthfully, because of Brad, that was the whole reason I got my Ford development contract. So, without Brad, there's no way I would be, sitting here talking today to you guys. He was a huge part of kind of my career to this point, and, always will be. And it was, it's a shame that it shut down, but it was cool to go out on top the way we did. The last race for the team to go out, and win at Homestead was, certainly a cool thing to do, and something that's been pretty incredible to see how many drivers have came from BKR and, have success in all the series. So he definitely has a good eye for talent. Glad to be one of the guys I got to drive for Brad, because it's certainly an impressive list.
Tyler, how was your ride like on the elevator at BKR?
It was a blast. I got to spend a lot of years at BKR. From the moment I walked in those doors to drive for the first time to, our final race together at Homestead all those years ago. I went from having pretty much no experience of any kind on asphalt, really. Only had run 4 to 5 races, I think, on asphalt prior to that. But what got me in the door there was my crazy race and finish at Rockingham all those years ago when I made that start with Ken Schrader, my first K&N start. The day we won that race, general manager at the time, Jeremy Thompson, who eventually became the general manager, was spotting for Brett in that race, and that really got Jeremy's eyes on us, and that's where Brad's interest came from. And when we were at Eldora for the first truck, I think the first truck series race I had at Eldora on dirt, we were part of the invitational field that was running late models there, and it just worked out to be able to go meet with Brad in the garage and sit down and talk to them about driving trucks. And that was what opened the door for me to come eventually race with them in the years that led after that.
And Daniel, same question for you. What was your experience like there?
Yeah, my experience was along the lines, a lot of what Ryan was talking about. You know, it was a lot about timing and right place at the right time. I think back to 2012, I was just grinding it out, running on, you know, straight rail late models, super late models, crate late models, really whatever anybody let me run throughout the country. And I'd found myself driving for a group that ran a lot up in like the Michigan, Indiana area. And actually Brad was the sponsor of a race. I think it's called the Brad 100 at his hometown track there in Auto City racetrack there in Michigan. As the story goes, went on to win that race, and he was in victory lane. That was my first time meeting Brad. And I thought that was funny because fast forward about 2 or 3 months past that, you know, the Cup cars were racing right down the road in Indianapolis for the Brickyard. And the time, the late models, the series I was running would run, you know, like the night before that race, I believe it was, there at IRP. And, you know, for a lot of people running Indy that week on the, you know, top 3 series, or, you know, especially at the Cup level, they would all come over and watch that short track, right? It was a great short track race. So as the story goes, I went on and won that night as well. And Brad happened to be there and walked up and was like, man, you're making a habit of winning when I'm around. So it was crazy how, like I said, that was in 2012. And I got in the truck for the first time in 2015 and got to know Jeremy Thompson that, like Reddick was talking about. And he had actually met me through my wife when she was racing. So he'd kind of kept up with what I was doing and whatnot. And at the end, near the end of 2015, he approached me and asked, you know, what my plans were. And I didn't really have any. I knew I wanted to take that next step in development. And that's when, you know, they offered me my deal there. And I tell you, you know, Chase hit on that, how impressive the list of drivers are and the people that have been able to come through the program. I think we can all take, you know, whether it was from the working with, you know, big time sponsors. I know we all had the chance to work with Horizon Global and I believe Cooper Standard was who a couple of you guys worked with. It kind of put me in front of the sponsorship side on a different level that I'd never seen before. So that maturity and then how you had to grow through that process, I think something we all took from that as well, and for sure led to all the opportunities we all had following our time at BKR.
Brad, now looking back on it all, did you think that your organization would have this type of impact in the development of so many drivers that are now competing throughout NASCAR?
Well, I think first off, it's humbling, and I'm really proud of it. In a lot of ways, I wish it was still going. Who knows, maybe one day it'll come back again. But you know, I was listening to everyone talk, and I appreciate everybody's kind words. And one person that really comes up a lot is Jeremy Thompson, who worked for me, and I hold in a really high regard because, you know, whether it was him and I had a handful of other people that helped me, but they would all come to me and say, all right, here are the top guys. Here's who you need to be talking to. Right. And, you know, I would come back to them and say, all right, well, go look at them. Go tell me what they got to say. And he would report back, and then we would talk about it and strategize. And he was such a huge part of the success and of bringing these guys up. And, you know, to go with that, you know, one of the things that I thought was really cool was when I got my first opportunity for a professional ride, sponsored ride, as Daniel was just saying, for Dale Jr., I was fortunate enough to go on and win most popular driver. And that was the coolest thing ever to me. And of course, part of it came from the fame and popularity that Dale Jr. had that handed down to me. But over the last few seasons of the truck team, I wanted to make sure that our drivers had an opportunity at that as well. So I bring this up because I went to the PR people on our team, and we created a incentive, really a bonus for our PR team if their driver, either one of the drivers, won most popular driver of the award, a year award. And the idea behind that was really simple. I knew that it would push our PR department to really expose our drivers in areas that maybe weren't always super comfortable in, but would ultimately pay dividends for them later in their career. So I bring that up because they deserve a lot of credit too. The PR team that we had, and Jeremy Thompson as the manager and helping the scout. But certainly there was some legwork on the whole team, and I'm proud of seeing all these guys make it to Cup. Just to make it to Cup is really a hell of an accomplishment, right? Lee Spencer once said it to me, and I'll never forget it. You make it to Cup, you're one of 40, right? So you're one of the 40 best. So just making it to Cup is a hell of an accomplishment. And then to see these guys have success at the Cup level in various forms is really rewarding to me. And to know that I played a part, not they're successful for their own reasons. It's not just because of me, but to know that I played a part along the way is pretty cool to me. And it makes me feel like I was able to leave a mark on the sport that was greater than just driving, and to really pay it back in a number of ways.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to open up the floor for questions. If you have a question for any one of these gentlemen, whether it's about Brad Keselowski racing or anything else as we head into the off season, go ahead and raise your hand. We'll get to you. We're going to start with Bob Pockers. Go ahead with your question, Bob.
Yeah, I have a couple for Chase. First off, since you've left Brad Keselowski Racing, do you talk to Brad much, or because you're still separate organizations, do you have to keep talks to a minimum?
I feel like I still talk to Brad, especially, if I'm going to a certain racetrack where I feel like I struggle, I still reach out, and I feel like, I don't talk to him as much as I would, Harvick or somebody that's in the organization, but I certainly, even when I was going through contract stuff, I would reach out because I valued his opinion. And, I'll never forget, even this year at Daytona at the hangar shoot, Brad coming up and telling me that the Xfinity series is wide open and to go take it. So I feel like me and Brad for sure, are still, we still talk. I still look up to him. He was one of my favorite drivers while I was a fan. So for me, just to get a drive for Brad was a huge honor. And like I was saying earlier, it's just crazy how it all came back full circle for me to go from volunteering at Bob and Brian's shop to then racing for Brad. It's just been a really cool journey.
And as far as prep for next year, the team really hasn't said anything official, but I assume Klossmeyer is going to be your crew chief. And do you know who's going to spot for you?
Yeah, me and Johnny are been going to the simulator and everything else. So yeah, that's the plan. And then spotter still, that's a great question, Bob. That's one I would love to know as well. We're having a couple meetings today trying to figure that out. So hopefully find something here soon. Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Our next question will come from Lee Spencer. Go ahead with your question, Lee.
Thank you. First for Brad, is it kind of bittersweet knowing that you could still be having this kind of turnout and still making a difference if your company was still up and running? And that being said, you knew at a young age that either way, if you're racing or not racing, that you're going to have something else in your life to sustain your career once you got out of the seat and moved into a different direction with your, with your technology. Did you just kind of always know you needed to be doing something else? And at some point, do you really want to get back to ownership?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if bittersweet's the right word, because I'm really proud of the crop that I have played a part in. And again, I don't want to take all the credit. I would say that my days on the car ownership side may not be active, but that doesn't mean that they're gone forever. And time will tell how they play out. And I think does that really answer your question, Lee? Or I'm sorry if, you were a little bit more in depth than that. We're looking for
Yeah,
something.
I mean, did you know at a young age? I mean, especially you're the third generation racer, youngest of I think 5 kids. Did you kind of always know that you would have a fallback plan for once you got out of the car, whether
Yeah.
it was racing or something else?
Yeah. I mean, obviously it's good business to build a plan B. I think you read a lot of these different books that tell you that, you shouldn't have a plan B if you want to be successful at something. And in some ways that makes sense, but as a race car driver, you can only be a race car driver for, a finite amount of time. Mark Martin did it better than anyone else, or Harry Gant, but the reality is those are most often the exceptions to the rule. But most race car drivers are really at the end of their career once they hit their 40s or mid 40s. So with respect to that, I know there will be a day where I can't be a race car driver anymore. That's the bittersweet day that's in front of me. And when that day comes, I don't want to just leave the sport behind. I would like to still be able to have a reason to come to a racetrack other than just to watch. What that'll be in the future, I don't know. I can't sit here today and say that I have that answered. But I do have a love for the sport that has started at an early age, and I don't suspect will end when I'm done driving.
And for Tyler and Chase, just curious, and Chase, I know you saw it firsthand, but Tyler, you talked a little bit about your transition and how BKR helped you make your transition from dirt to asphalt. Can you guys just kind of reflect real quick on what Chase Elliott was able to accomplish over the weekend at Millbridge, going from asphalt, never sitting in a midget, and finishing in the podium in his first race?
Yeah, for me, I feel like, the transition from dirt to pavement, I always, I've never went the other direction, but I feel like it'd be a lot easier. The pavement to dirt thing, I think would be extremely tough. There was only 13 or 14 cars there, but, there were still 7 or 8 good guys. And for him to run as good as he did, I was amazed, to be honest. There was USAC champions in the field. There was guys that, when USAC races, won Chili Bowl prelim nights, and he drove by. It ain't like he running around the bottom. I mean, he drove by me pounding the fence. So I was highly impressed at what he was able to do. And obviously, if you win a Cup championship, I mean, you're a heck of a race car driver. And, that just proved it to me.
Yeah, for sure. That transition isn't easy, as Chase mentioned. I had to learn a lot very quickly at BKR, and it was a lot of fun. I had a lot of really good people around me at BKR to help make that possible, from Jeremy all the way down, my crew chief Doug Randolph. But the transition from dirt to asphalt, for me going into it, I knew I had a lot to learn in the driving style and just, longer races, different mindset, mentality. But what I didn't expect was all the other things, like kind of like what Daniel mentioned, dealing with the large sponsors like Cooper Standard, Draw Tight, and those folks there. I had to learn a lot about how to dress going to the racetrack, how to be professional, and I had a lot of help through Jimmy White, Jeremy, and all those folks that were at BKR. Lay down the groundwork to be the best person I could and represent the team to the best of my ability. But with Chase Elliott, I mean, we've seen it. He's definitely seems like when he puts his mind to something and he wants to go out and do it, he puts every ounce of effort towards it. And to see him run that good isn't a surprise from that aspect, because you see the drive, you see the work he's willing to put into now be a Cup champion. So see him get in there's not a surprise. It's just a nod to the effort that he puts into to go out there and do as good as he does.
Appreciate your time today, gentlemen.
Our next question will come from Mark Garrow. Go ahead with your question, Mark.
Thanks. First off, for Ryan, without your hat, do people recognize you with this beard, man? Because I didn't even, it took me a second glance to figure out who the heck you were. If you weren't wearing the hat, I wouldn't have known.
Maybe I should start not wearing the hat and keep people guessing. We'll see. Nah, it's yeah, I don't know. Winter coat, I guess, what you can call it. So it'll be gone before you know it.
One question for everybody here on the panel. What's it been like to go through this year with the COVID? Not so much on the track, but just going through your life at the track and that experience with your team and how you've had to live your personal lives. Just wondering how all of you felt about that.
Let's start with Brad on that. Go with your answer, Brad. Ryan, thoughts?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was muted. I was telling all.
Go ahead, Brad. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying that my wife and I talk about it all the time because we have two young kids, and one who's only a year old and another that's 5. And so the oldest will probably remember it. And you know, in some ways, it's kind of the best and the worst of times. It's the best of times because we get to spend a lot of time together as a family and get to do things that we wouldn't have got to do. You know, but on the other side, you know, the pain and the grief that's caused so many people in different ways is not anything that we all enjoy to see and don't wish upon anyone. So we're very fortunate to be healthy and well, and wishing everyone else the best, but certainly respectful to those and having the empathy and sympathy for those that have not been as fortunate.
Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a weird year, not only for us, you know, everyone in the world, right? I mean, you can't go do normal things that you normally would go do, you know, work, you know, play, all that stuff. You know, it's been a change. You know, I have a really good friend of mine who works in the ER department in the hospital back home where I grew up, and I get stories from him. And it's real for sure. And so you just gotta be smart, you know, with it. But yeah, it's definitely been a weird year for everybody. And, you know, like Brad said, that's unfortunate, people who have passed away from it or have gotten sick from it. You know, I've been lucky on our family that we've been staying clear of it on all sides. So definitely a strange year, but hopefully things clear up soon. It's looking that way. So we'll see where it leads. But I thought NASCAR did a really good job this year on regulating everything and keeping everybody as safe as possible. So I gotta give them credit for that.
Chase, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, like Brad said, it's sad to see how many, you know, people, businesses, all that's been affected. You know, one of my best friends, his grandpa just died from it last weekend, so it's definitely real. You know, from, you know, the personal side, you know, I think Ryan, you know, said it really well. You can't go do the things you want to do or you're used to doing, and yeah, it's tough. But then, like Brad said, you get to spend a lot of time at home with your family, and you know that part of it's great. And then on the racetrack, you know, it was definitely different. You know, just the preparation leading up to the race, kind of your routine you typically go through. You know, for me, you know, yeah, it was great to win all the races this year, but it was weird to not have fans to celebrate with and do all those things. Then even this year, it's been tough to kind of get used to a new team just because they really don't want us at the shop, and it's tough to kind of build that chemistry going into a new season. So it's definitely been different, but you know, like Ryan said, I think NASCAR's done a phenomenal job of even letting us go back to racing and you know, feeling safe going to the racetrack. So it's been a really, really good job by everybody involved for sure.
Tyler?
Yeah, it was a very odd way to make my rookie year and get thrown into the Cup world without you know, we had a couple practices to start the year off, but there's some of the things that are taken for granted that, you know, you don't realize until they're gone is just all the friends that you have that you travel with and around that go to these races. I mean, I'll never take it for granted again, being able to catch up with, so-and-so on another team, getting to bump into other drivers, getting to bump into Brad or some of the other drivers that you've had relationships with that have helped you along the way, all those different people that work at different teams that, you don't really get that. And we did not have that last year. And that was something that, probably wasn't one of the first things I thought of when I thought of 2020 and the way it went, but it's one of the things I definitely miss. Being able to take Alexa and Bo on the road with me. Not being able to was difficult. We had planned on traveling to all the races, and with everything that was going on, it wasn't really safe for Bo to be at the racetrack. Can't get him in the racetrack. So it was a big shakeup. But we got to do what's right. We got to be safe. We got to take all the necessary precautions so that, we keep people healthy and we don't spread COVID in our garage. We got to take the necessary steps. So I'm glad we got the season in. It was a weird first season. It has its pros and cons from no practice for us at some places, but I'm just glad we're at the race, and I'm hoping we can get back to what we want, what we think the call is normal, and can get back to those full garages. And
Daniel, your thoughts?
I mean, obviously, most of these guys have already touched on a lot of it, but I find myself sharing a lot of the same thoughts as Brad. For the pandemic to hit, and at the time, my wife Kinsey be roughly 7 months pregnant, and go on and have our daughter Ren in May. It did allow us, especially myself, to spend so much more time and be around through that integral part of development and growth for all of us as a family. And so I was thankful for that time. But on the professional side, it was odd, right? Trying to balance, not being at the shop, trying to learn a new race team, trying to figure out what the new process even was, right? Because nobody ever expected this or saw this coming. So trying to prepare yourself mentally and physically for races in a different manner was interesting. I think we all probably saw sides of that. So, but more or less, thinking about the racing in itself, us having to worry about having a chance to go back to the racetrack, and the protocols that were put in place were incredible by NASCAR. But on the flip side, we were worried about racing, and there's so many less fortunate folks worried about so many bigger things, and what we were doing was so small in comparison to those. So thankful that we did get it in, but extremely humbled the fact that we did, but also think about all those that were so much less fortunate and continue to be less fortunate as we try to beat this thing.
Thank you, guys.
Our next question is going to come from Kelly Crandall. Go ahead with the question, Kelly.
Thank you. I have one for Brad and one for Chase. Chase, I'll start with you. When this was announced you were going to the 14, kind of switching topics here, Tony had said that, in a way, Clint had done all he could for that program. So just curious, now that you're getting locked in with Cup stuff and getting prepared for next year, in what ways do you think you can elevate that 14 and kind of get them maybe back to running on par with the 4 and the 10 and everybody else?
Well, I mean, I think Clint still had a lot of really good runs. He was battling for a lot of wins there at the end of the year, and it's going to take a while to figure out this Cup car and get used to how it drives. Obviously, like Tyler was saying, with no practice, that obviously there's pros and cons to that. So it's going to take a while. But I'm excited for the challenge. I'm just looking forward to getting going and kind of seeing where I stack up. It's obviously going to be a huge learning curve, but one I'm looking forward to make, and hopefully we can be competitive. Cole obviously was able to get a win there at Kentucky, and I think the new schedule lines up well, at least for tracks that I typically run well at. So I'm looking forward to it, and just we kind of got to get the season going and see where we stack up.
Thank you. And for Brad, last week, Jeremy talked about how you and the engineers had some conversations, some brainstorming sessions, he said, to get better going into next year. He also said there's a lot of motivation for everybody after Phoenix and coming so close to a championship. So I just wanted to ask, do you feel the same way? Do you feel as motivated as ever to get back there being so close? And what have those brainstorming sessions been like?
Sure. Well, second is, stings. At the end of the day, it is the result. And it certainly could be a lot worse, but to get that close and not bring it home is a sting. And you can either let that, kind of burn, stay with you, or you can try to work through it and be better. So we'll try to work through it and be better. And I know his commitment is high, and I think he's a great person. and we have the capability of hopefully finding that next level. So certainly some work cut out for us. I think there's going to be some great competition next year. I think the moves that Chevrolet's making are really strong, and they're going to be a super force to be reckoned with next year. And obviously, having won the championship last year, and they've got a lot to build off of. But we're going to have to put everything together and execute just a little bit better. The bar's always being raised every year, and we have to continue to raise it ourselves as well. And I think the commitment's there, the hunger's there, and I'm looking forward to it.
Our next question will come from Jeff Gluck. Go ahead with your question, Jeff.
Yeah, for Brad and Ryan, the 3-day weekends were all we knew for so long in NASCAR. I mean, now, there'll be some of them next year, obviously, but for the most part, they're gone away, which is progress in a lot of ways. But, is there anything now that we're sort of saying goodbye to those that you will miss about the rhythm and flow of the way of the weekends we used to know?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Brad was more a part of it than I was. I've been fortunate to be a part of it for a little bit, but I would throughout this year only going to 1-day shows for most of the year. There were some points I missed 3-day weekends. I missed getting there to the track. I missed practicing all day Friday. And just being there with your guys. That's a big difference. Just hanging out with everybody. It's your second family, pretty much. I mean, you see those guys so much, and especially kind of our situation at Penske, swapping up everything in the off season. You didn't really get to spend a ton of time with those guys before everything hit and shut down. So you knew those guys on the other teams, but not as closely as you knew your previous team, obviously. But so that the part I do miss is sometimes is the 3-day weekend of really working through your stuff over a couple of practices. I enjoyed that, and sitting down with everybody and figuring out how to go faster and how to make the car go faster, how to make you go faster, all that stuff I do miss. There are some things I do enjoy about the shorter weekends, but there are some things that I will miss about 3-day shows. But we'll see, we'll see where everything kind of progresses to. But yeah, there are things you miss and some things you don't.
Yeah, believe it or not, I miss the Fridays and Saturdays in Pocono. You're out in the middle of nowhere. It almost felt like camping. But no, I think all in all, it's for the best. And I think NASCAR was able to pull off the new schedule in a way that still gave a high level of engagement, gave content to our partners that's important, but also mitigated our risk factors and associated costs. So I honestly think they deserve a lot of credit for it, that they were willing to take that step. I probably can play a little hindsight that I wish that step was taken a few years earlier, but I'm still grateful that it was taken.
Thank you.
No problem.
Our next question will come from Claire B. Lang. Go ahead with the question, Claire.
Thank you. Question for Brad Keselowski. Brad, how much did you think about last season heading into this season, and how much do you just put it out of your mind? You were talking about it, but how much do you just have to forget it, and how much do you have to dwell on it or use it for chip on the shoulder or whatever?
Well, I don't think you should ever forget it. I think you should always remember it. There were some really great moments, but as far as the actual championship finish, I think you should use it as a lesson. I read some quote from someone the other day. I never lose. I just learn better, sometimes the hard way. And so if you keep that mentality, I think that's how you have a commitment to continuous improvement and finding that next level that you'll need to find to, quite frankly, be a champion in 2021.
And this week we talked to Denny Hamlin about how he's loving setting up a team, picking out uniforms and working with Michael Jordan and whatnot. And he's going to try to get all the stuff this time of year and then replace the stuff he does during the season, golf and stuff like that, with working on the race team. When you watch that endeavor with your experience, what are your thoughts about what that takes?
Yeah, I mean, it's a labor of love, right? You got to commit to it. You got to be consistent. The most impressive thing to me about Roger Penske has always been, not to me, how well he handles those things. And he does those things very well, don't get me wrong. The planning, the prepping, and all those things. The most impressive thing to me about Roger Penske, having worked with him now for 10, 11 years, is his ability to lose. You know, keep in mind, he has all these race teams that race everywhere. At any point in time, somebody's losing. And probably it's not a lot of fun. And that can really rattle you in a lot of ways. It can shake you. It's not, losing's not a lot of fun. But his ability to recharge his batteries and stay consistent, show back up the next week and keep working, is to me the most impressive thing that he exudes. Because racing can be a lot of fun when you're winning. Well, racing is a lot of fun when you're winning. It can be a lot of fun when you're planning, when you're getting ready for a new year. What racing isn't is fun when you're losing. In fact, it really sucks. You get a constant reminder from your fans, your friends, even your family when you're not winning. And it's painful. The real test to me, and one of the things that I look at in that position, is how well can you handle losing? Can you rebound from it, and rebound from it emotionally, but also rebound from it to recover the performance and to find the solutions to achieve the success you desire.
Wow, that's really good. Thank you. And happy holidays to you and your family.
Thank you, Claire. All the best.
Our final questions are going to come from Taryn Weck. Go ahead with the question, Taryn.
Thanks, Matt. I'm going back to the truck team idea real quick, and this is for Ryan. Is Brad as much as a mentor now as a teammate as he was as an owner, like back in your career?
I still look at it that way. Yeah. I mean, I was watching Brad, when he was getting rolling with Junior Motorsports, driving that 88 car. And then, when he won the championship with the 22 team on the Xfinity side. I always admired Brad as a race car driver and a person, and it was just kind of, really cool to be able to drive to him and for him, for 2-3 years, and then to become a teammate with him at the same time. It was honestly almost kind of a weird thing. Like I'm, kind of racing with my former boss, things like that. So yeah, I still look at him, as not only a teammate now, but still someone I look up to a lot, and has been really helpful through my career, not only getting, started in the, truck series, and which led to Xfinity and Cup, but I still look at him, as a friend, and, things like that. And, you never forget those people, you never forget those people who give you shots, out of nowhere. We were just running for a small team at the time. And Brad was very generous enough to give us an opportunity, and we're just really fortunate it worked out. We had a great team. We were able to win some races with that truck team and almost won a championship there my last year. And, so yeah, I still look at him as a mentor and a teammate now and a friend. And I think that's great. And it's been a lot of fun to work with him. It's hard to believe it's been about 8 yeers, 7 or 8 years since that all started. But my mindset on Brad hasn't changed. I still look up to him. I still look to him for help. But we're racing together every single week, racing against each other really too. So yeah, that side is still stuck with me. And I think that's the right way to be. I mean, you never forget those people who give you opportunities. You're always appreciative towards those people. And, Brad in this case is someone I'll always be, in my head of someone who gave me a shot, is why I'm here. And you always have to respect people like that. So that'll never change.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Brad, before we close here, I would be remiss if I did not ask you about what's going on right now with the Checkered Flag Foundation and all the work that's going on your behalf throughout this holiday season. Could you give us an update on how things are progressing and what you're doing to keep busy with the Checkered Flag Foundation here in the month of December?
Sure, Matt. Well, first off, I think every one of my drivers on the truck side at some point in time played a role in the foundation and helped out in some different ways. So first off, thanks to you guys for your help and support. This has been a fun call, and it's good to see everybody. And don't get to see everybody the way we'd like to, obviously, given the landscape as it is. But that said, the foundation has always got a number of initiatives going on. We got a really cool one coming up this weekend that we're working on with respect to suiting up some warriors and helping some people that are just getting out of the military with new clothes and stuff. So that's an initiative that's near and dear to my heart. A couple weeks back, we had our dog giveaway, service dog giveaway to a service member who was in dire need, had just retired and needed a service dog. And so we funded, the training and so forth of a brand new puppy and for him and his family to be his caretaker and PTSD support dog. So there's a number of those initiatives. We try to be as impactful as we can and leave a mark. And, for this holiday season, we've got that going on, and I'm super proud. My wife has been super active with it lately, and not that I'm not, but it's something for her and I to do together that I think is really brings us closer, and is a way for us to kind of show our thanks and gratitude, especially given the life that we're so privileged to live.
That's fantastic. And thank you for all that you're doing. And I want to thank all the gentlemen who joined us on this call today to talk about the days of Brad Keselowski racing and just racing in general as we head into the 2021 NASCAR season. So guys, have a great holiday season, and we'll see you in 2021.
All right. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Have a good day, everyone. Happy holidays.
We're going to be joined here by Corey LaJoie. So we're going to get Corey here into the room. Give us a moment. If you do have a question for Corey, go ahead and raise your hand. We'll get you in line. Corey, can you hear us? There you go.
You kept muting me. Now I'm unmuting them.
There you go. Yeah. My bad. Well, we are now joined by Corey LaJoie, and who will be driving in 2021 for Spire Motorsports. Corey, talk about the excitement you have as we head into the 2021 season with the new ride.
I mean, this is probably the most excited I've been in leading up to any year in my NASCAR career, at least, just because I know how much we're going to over exceed expectations for what people have become used to a Spire Motorsports entry being on track. I'm going over to the shop here this afternoon, and I go there probably every other 3 days or so, and there's somebody new, somebody from a different team, somebody that's excited to come build and be part of the culture that we're trying to build for the future. And we're getting some good cars, some good engines, and it'll be the most solid deal that I've ever had. So that's why I'm sort of looking forward to getting down to Daytona, and even not so much Daytona. Daytona's great, and it's our Super Bowl, but I want to see 4 or 5 weeks in kind of how we stack up competitively and who we're actually going to be racing with around that points race for the rest of the year.
Good deal. We're going to open up the floor for questions. Our first question is going to come from Greg Engel. Go ahead with your question, Greg.
Hey, Corey. Thanks for taking the time out today. Denny and his new team announced yesterday a whole slew of sponsors, which is great and, good for the sport. And as you know, without sponsors, none of us have a job. One of the things that I found interesting, and maybe, I don't know if you're seeing this at your level, is that these sponsors aren't as interested as having their quote unquote billboards on the side of race cars as it is the social justice actions that are going on off the track, if that makes sense. Because that was a big deal last year, this past season, not only the pandemic, but all the social injustice stuff that was going on. Are you seeing that at your level where the sponsors are saying, yeah, having our name on the car is great, coming to meet our guys at the VIP lounge and all that's cool, but we're trying to do more than just centered around racing, or maybe that's something you don't see at your level. I don't know.
Well, every partner that I have wants a little bit something different, right? I mean, a company like Schluter Systems, for example, they are on and they continue to invest in myself as well as the sport because they see the benefit of bringing people to the racetrack, which obviously we're in unique times there. So we have to kind of jump through some hoops and make some creative stuff happen in that front. But like a consumable product like Built Bar, for example, it's a protein bar product. And, you know, they do jump on the car for the brand awareness. That way, when people look at, when they're trying to find their particular protein bar, they can kind of associate that race, what's on my race car versus what they purchased. But, you know, on the other side, you know, there's, you know, I think every individual company supports whatever charitable things that they feel like they're tied to their core values. You know, and you also have to get creative with all the assets that are available, whether it be the podcast or, you know, obviously social media is a big header now for everybody, just 'cause that's the first question they ask, you know, how many Instagram or social media, Facebook followers you have. So that's really the only way to captivate somebody's attention for that short little time when they're scrolling through social media. So, you know, I do think that the billboard, to your example of the analogy, I still think that's as valuable as ever because of the eyeballs that are watching on TV, as well as that are going to be at the race any given Sunday. But we also have to get creative with all the other avenues and the levers we have to pull to give those companies the best return for their investment, because it is a lot of money they spend each and every week or every year. When you point to, you know, a Dr. Pepper, you know, in terms of some of Bubba's content sponsors they just announced, like they all want to get something a little bit different. You know, and obviously Bubba's unique. He's a unique figure in our sport that they can do a lot of good stuff with. So, you know, I'm happy to see Bubba have some success, and we'll see how they run competitively next year. And but I'd like to think I get up there and spoil his day every now and then, no matter you know, how whoever's on our car any particular week. I think we're going to be running pretty good, running with those guys quite often.
And another thing that came out of this past season with the pandemic was the growth of the sport. I mean, you guys were iRacing, and here you guys are racing in your freaking closets, you know, and doing the iRacing and online. And NASCAR got such a bump from that. Morning Consult came up with a fastest growing brand report a couple weeks ago, and maybe you saw it. And NASCAR was one of the fast growing sports. And a lot of that has to do with what you guys did on the iRacing side. Do you still, I mean, the more to still continue to ride that wave, do you see yourself still participating in stuff like that? Do you think there'll be time? Do you want to continue to help ride that wave, so to speak, to keep those younger demographics coming in?
I mean, I certainly think NASCAR should embrace it. I'm not going to do it because I got kids and I have a wife that I spend enough time away from them, so I don't really want to be in my basement racing, playing video games for 8 hours a day to try to get good at it. So I'll leave that for the bachelors and the guys who don't mind sitting in their basement playing iRacing for hours on end. My brother being one, he lives upstairs here at the shop, and he's probably on his iRacing simulator 6 hours a day. And my wife would not let that fly. So it was a good thing for the sport. I mean, there's the only thing that could be really comparable to what we actually have for a live product during the pandemic. And it was also great that NASCAR just organized it in a way that we were the first live sports to make a comeback after the pandemic. So it actually might have gave a lot of people their first taste of NASCAR. And I think once you get a taste, then you get people to the racetrack and then they're hooked. So, you know, I'm not sure how much I am dumping coals into the iRacing fire, if you will, but it's certainly a good thing to utilize. And I know Tim Clark and those guys over at NASCAR certainly utilize that Coke series. And you know, iRacing's a great platform, and you know, the graphics are getting better each and every update. And you know, I had a rig, I sold it just if it's downstairs, I'm gonna be downstairs using it. So I'd rather be upstairs hanging out with little man and my wife. That way it doesn't start burning up my brownie points, because I'd rather burn my brownie points up on something else.
Thanks, Corey. Happy holidays to you and your family, my friend. And I guess you get used to that Flowbee we see the box for behind you.
That's so as you can tell, this is my old man's office, and Randy LaJoie, I think, so he had a Flowbee years ago. He must have read that article that George Clooney only cuts his hair with a Flowbee. So I noticed this Flowbee box showed up a couple weeks ago. So I'm scared to even pull that thing out of the box and see what lies inside.
Thanks again, pal.
Thanks. Have a good Christmas.
I'm grateful somebody asked about the Flowbee, and our next question will come from Jacob Seelman. Go ahead with the question, Jacob.
I don't even quite know how to follow that, so I'm just going to go with my original plan and roll with it. Corey, congratulations first off. You mentioned kind of in your opening remarks that you expect this team to overexceed expectations next year for what people have gotten used to out of Spire. I mean, what did you see when you guys were working on this deal, or when you were looking at your options for 2021? What stuck out to you as being, the determining factor of this is the right thing for me, if there was such a factor?
I mean, there's certainly always factors when you make a decision that, is probably a watershed moment of in your career. My wife and I talk through, and we literally write down the pros and cons of every situation, and you just weigh which one you end up wanting to do. But having the relationship with Jeff Dickerson and TJ and all those guys at Spire for as long as I have, not really in a professional relationship, just as friends, so I knew that when it got to the point where once they bought the 95 charter and assets, I knew that they were going to kind of be forced to go racing, but didn't really know how deep they were going to jump in. And after the first meeting, they didn't really have an idea of cars or motors or people, but I knew the vision they had, and I knew everything those guys touched usually ends up being a pretty good success. And whether it be TJ working with Braun Racing or Turner Motorsports, and Jeff working with swatting for Jeff Gordon and representing Kyle Busch, and those guys know what it takes to run well in the Cup Series. And I knew that what their vision was aligned with mine, and I thought that I could bring what my value is on and off the racetrack, and I thought that it was going to be more of a I guess more accomplishment if I jump in with those guys at the ground level and build something, as opposed to being handed the keys for something that you kind of know what the framework already looks like. So that's kind of what excited me about doing it, is jumping in and having a part, building something. Hopefully we can end up competing for wins and fighting for a playoff spot, in the next couple of years.
To follow up on that, is that something that is you're familiar with in a way? I kind of feel like when you talk about building from the ground up, you've had to do a lot of that with the situations you've been in your career.
Yeah, I mean, partly because I didn't have any other choice, right? I mean, there was a couple of times where I chose to remain in the Cup Series when I had, some Xfinity opportunities, and everybody has a particular hand of cards they're dealt, and it's just a matter about how you play them. And I forgot where I said it, but whether it be on the podcast or something else, but I've worked my entire life to make it to the Cup Series. I just didn't feel like taking a step down was doing everybody that helped me get here any justice. So I just kind of remained in Sunday. It might not be the context that I particularly wanted over the past couple of years, but Go Fast gave me a great opportunity to learn kind of the ropes of a full-time season, learn just how to kind of keep guys motivated throughout the course of that grueling 36 race season. And, kind of parlay that into a little bit of job security with a multi-year deal here at Spire, continue to grow all the partners that continue to invest in my career. So, every step has been progressively better. So I'm trending the right way. And I do feel like I'm with a group that ultimately have the same vision to get it there and are realistic with their expectations, and have the connections to put some good cars and some good tools in the hands of the guys that they're hiring to push this deal along. And I'm just happy to be a small part of it.
Thanks for your time. Happy holidays.
Yeah, you too.
Our next question will come from Jim Utter. Go ahead with the question, Jim.
Hey, Corey, kind of along those lines, have you had a chance yet to have any interaction with Steve Letarte, who's now doing some consultant over there at Spire Motorsports?
Yeah, we went and had some coffee a couple times, and it doesn't matter if it's 7:30 in the morning or if it's about 6 o'clock at night. That guy always has a coffee in his hand. But we did go have a coffee, and that guy. I mean, that guy's just a awesome personality. But I probably didn't give him enough credit, and I was probably a little bit young when he was crew chief for Jeff and he was crew chief for Dale Earnhardt Jr. That guy is one of the smartest guys that I've ever met, and he's also infectious, and he's just a guy that gets you pepped up and gets you. Hey, Dad. Hey, could you shut the door? Dad. Sorry. Shut the door, please. Sorry about that. Jesus. I think he owns the place or something. So Steve and we sat down, probably had, I don't know, 2.5 hours, just laying out what he's expecting to do. I think that in terms of Steve's timing, everybody, when they take a step away from the competitive side, whether for him to be going to the broadcast booth, he stepped away from that competitive day-to-day, trying to figure out what areas you can do to make yourself and your team better. Eventually, for everybody, that fire starts burning again. And I think Jeff and TJ offered Steve the opportunity to have his hand to kind of quench that fire, if you will. And he's the perfect guy to fit into the culture, what we're trying to build. He's almost the conduit between Spire and the relationship with Hemric Motorsports, with engines and drivetrains, as well as Ganassi for our cars. So there is no better guy that could fit that role than Steve Letarte, and he's also a hell of a good time to hang out with. So it checks all the boxes.
And quick follow-up, do you have any idea, is there a timetable on when you might know who might your teammate be?
I mean, it's not going to be a full-time teammate from what I understand. That they're going to try to do a lot of different things with that charter. Try to drum up some sponsorship dollars, to try to drum up some excitement in terms of, one-off guys, whether it be for road courses or whatever the course may be. I know they got a lot of things up in the air with that car, so certainly it's way above my pay grade too. I got enough stuff to worry about on my end that whoever drives that 77 car, I'll be a good teammate, and we'll look at SMT and we'll go grab a sandwich. But I got enough stuff going on.
Thanks, Corey. Have a good holiday.
Yeah, you too.
Our next question is going to come from Jeff Gluck. Go ahead with the question, Jeff.
Hey, Corey, I'm writing a story about like a piece looking back at sort of like saying goodbye to the 3-day weekends as we knew it. I mean, I know we'll have a few, but they're not going to be the way, obviously, going forward. So, looking back on them, I know it's mostly progress to have the shorter weekends and stuff, but is there anything you'll miss about sort of the rhythm and the flow of those weekends that you got used to?
No, not at all. I mean, it was brutal. I mean, especially, I didn't bring my motor. I don't even have a motor. I might use my grandpa's. I mean, to go in there on Saturday for an 8 a.m. practice and we don't do anything the rest of the day was ridiculous. So I'm glad that COVID almost pushed us to do something that should have been done 5 years ago. But hey, better late than never, right? So saves the team a lot of money. The fans obviously miss out with some at-track, on-track time, which is obviously a con there, but I think that might be able to just cross-pollinate with some IndyCar races in the future with Roger at the helm over there. I think you're going to see a lot more just cool things at the racetrack, whether it be more ARCA races that are in conjunction with Cup races or whatever the course may be. But 3-day weekends with a lot of sitting around and not a lot to do got old pretty quick when you're sitting in a hotel room for hours on end trying to find something to do. So especially with a 9-month-old at the house, there's nothing better than flying up on Sunday morning and flying back Sunday afternoon. Granted, it gets you a little spoiled because I went to it got my wife spoiled, to be honest, because I went to COTA for that WRL race a couple weeks ago. I guess it was last week. And I flew down there on a Thursday night, got back on Saturday night or Sunday night. And my wife was like, "You're gone forever." I'm like, "This was a normal race weekend like 6 months ago." Just the whole Sunday morning, Sunday night is a fairy tale, but it seems like NASCAR is kind of sharpening the pencil a little bit in terms of scheduling and making everything a little more concise. So I'm all for two-day shows and one-day shows in the future, because I think the on-track product certainly doesn't suffer from having less practice. Sometimes in some instances, I think it's better. But I'm all good with not leaving on a Thursday afternoon for 4 hours of practice and making one lap on a Saturday morning.
Thank you.
Our next question is going to come from Chris Estrada. Go ahead with the question, Chris.
Thank you. Corey, I just want to ask you about, I guess, your returning crew chief, Ryan Sparks, who's coming over with you to Spire. How important is it to maintain that continuity in a new environment where everything's being built up like Spire's having right now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, one of the major factors behind Spire hiring Sparks, because it wasn't like Sparks and I were a package deal, right? There were guys on Spire's whiteboard they had conversations with, and they obviously took my input for what it was worth. But the relationship that Ryan has with a couple guys at Hemric, with a couple guys at Ganassi, and also the relationship him and I have, I felt like our cars drove particularly well a lot of the places we went to, especially with no practice and one-day shows. It's going to be really important to have a guy that knows how to translate whatever pops up on the computer of simulation and put it in real life. And I think Ryan's one of the best that I've worked with in that regard. And we also have all the notes, and he kind of knows what I favor in terms of setups and things like that we can almost hit the ground running, as opposed to learning each other throughout the course of the first half of the season. I think we take that learning curve out of the way, and Spire's given, Sparks some more tools to work with and some better cars and some better engines than we had last year. So there's no reason why we can't run considerably better than we did last year in that 32.
And as a quick follow-up, you mentioned input. Obviously, Jeff and TJ have the final say, but in these early days, how much input have you been given or have had in building up this operation? Because when you were hired, one of the owners called you, quote, an anchor to build the organization around. So I'm just curious as how much input you've been given early on.
Let me put it this way. About 15 feet over on the surface plate, I'm building a sign for out front of the shop. So that's how much input they're giving me with the team. So I'm actually water jetting and building a sign frame for out front of the shop. In terms of personnel, they're giving Sparks a lot of that reign. Obviously, he knows what he's looking for in terms of mechanics and things like that. But we're having meetings and talking through personnel and stuff like that. But things like I don't claim to know. I'm smart enough to know what I don't know. So I let those guys that are getting paid for a certain job, let those guys do their job, and I'll offer some 2 cents. But in terms of fire suit designs and how the cars look and what partners we're going to bring on board and what context, and so much as the building out sign out front of the shop, like I'm going to have my kind of like touch on a lot of different areas. So I love that sort of stuff. I love, TJ and I kind of look at the sport and kind of want our stuff to look very similar a certain way. So it's just a good fit from top to bottom, and I'm excited to see what all pans out.
Thank you, Corey.
Our next question is going to come from Mark Garrow. Go ahead with the question, Mark.
Thank you. I've got a couple. Corey, you talked about running better than expectations. Right now, we've got sort of a group of cars up there around the top 10, top 12 all the time. Another group down there, the 12th to 22nd, and then kind of everybody else. Where do you feel you're going to fit in?
Well, it's hard to say, being that we have no clue in terms of where we stack up speed wise with the motor program and the cars. But my personal goals are to compete with JTG, beat Front Row. I think that we could be, I'd like to think we could be somewhere between 19th and 22nd, third in points. I think that's really doable if we, execute and don't have any mechanical failures. Because if you look, even, the 1 and the 42 have been playoff cars the last 5 years. And Kurt shows a lot of speed a lot of the weekends. So, if I have something similar to what those guys have, I'd hate to think we couldn't be up there racing the majority of the time. But again, it's everybody has high hopes and blue skies at this point in time. When you get to Homestead or when you get to Vegas, you kind of see realistically how you shape up. But I hate to think we couldn't be on a good day, maybe at Martinsville or Bristol, fighting for, a top 10, possibly a top 15s. And then, I think one of the biggest tools that Sparks has to work with is a Hawkeye. And, you can maximize the bodies and underbody and skew and all the things that we never have had access to, the stuff that makes speed at your mile and a halves, at those fast places. All that stuff's going to add up to a lot of speed. And I think that we have a lot of good people who can utilize those products. And I'd hate to think we couldn't be a top 20 car more often than not.
You also mentioned a moment ago how in the next 2 years, 3 years, whatever, you could envision yourself being a playoff team. You've been around the sport your whole life, and you know what Gibbs and Hemric and Stewart Haas are all about. Is that realistic? Do you feel like you can build something in 2 or 3 years that is going to be, playoff quality?
That's a good question. Right now you'd like to think so, right? And that's why we're doing it. That's why we jumped into the boat and we're rowing that sucker. I guess perfect example of kind of what we're trying to do. Like when I told TJ, I'm like, hey, I'm building a sign for out front of the shop type of deal. And he's like, whoa. Like I was telling him about how I'll get it water jetted out and I'll build this. He goes, no. Like if that costs $2,500, I'd rather put $2,500 into making your car go fast type of deal. Like if there's any money coming through the door, it's going in to make our race cars go faster. So that's why I said, I will build the sign because I like doing that sort of stuff. But it's, I'll draw it up and cut it out and do the whole bit. So little things like that, know the vision and where they're trying to take it, and those guys are so well connected with people in the industry as well as outside the industry with their hockey teams and different partners they have involved in they're pretty much 10, almost hundreds of deals they have going on at any particular time. We're just at the start of those guys really taking this thing and ramping it up and doing some B2B deals to get everybody involved, and build what potential clients or people we already have on the boat. So it is realistic to think with the next gen car and a spending cap coming in, that if you had any more than $12 to $14 million, it couldn't essentially make your race car go faster. Right now, if you had $30 million, you can find an infinite amount of areas to make your car go faster. So with this next gen car and that spending cap or would budget, whatever they wanted to call it, it certainly makes it realistic for a team like Spire with the right partners and the right guys on the leadership side to build it into a playoff contending team.
My final question is dealing with Spire. It's not been a start and park car by any means, but it hasn't been where people can look, guys like me from the outside looking in can say, okay, that's a really, really serious effort to try to be competitive. Is that something you're going to have to kind of overcome, or Spire, between you and Spire, have to get people to believe like, okay, this is not that, this is something new?
I think that everybody that we have on board, Sparks pretty much leading the charge. I guess that we're not really going to care about outside opinion. We're going to take what tools that we have to work with, and we're going to not make excuses for what we don't have. We're going to take what we do have and and outrun people with even more. And I feel like we did that, once every 3 weeks last year when we hit it or whatever, some guys missed it. But I think that, if we bring a good solid race car every week, we can outperform a lot of the guys that might have more of a spending budget or whatever the case may be, just because we're going to focus on the things that actually matter and try to take care of the things that we can control and worry about what other outside opinions there might be. Those will sort themselves out if we do our jobs how we all think or how we all know we can.
Thank you. Good luck on the season.
Thanks.
Our next question will come from Bob Pockris. Go ahead with the question, Bob.
Yeah, first, since we heard your dad, not rare to hear your dad, but is this your dad's shop? Because there's just all photos of your dad and none of you, it looks like.
My dad and I, Bob, have a very interesting relationship. Thank you for noticing he doesn't have any pictures of me in his office, but there are some pictures. Oh, no. Are you there?
I'm here.
Hang on. Oh, there we go. There's a couple pictures over there. So, yes, my dad does love me, Bob. Thanks. But, yes, this is Dad's office. He's got some old pictures, some old helmets. A couple of them are cracked. That explains why Dad says some of the things he does sometimes. But, yeah, I steal his office occasionally. I'm usually back there working on something. But whenever they say, all you fine folk want to talk to me on Zoom, I had to cop his office for a couple minutes.
And I know you talk about where you hope to be this year, but I'm curious more, what do you hope this team gets? What type of foundation do you hope this team gets done this year for when the next gen comes in? Like, I mean, in other words, is it more important just to get a foundation laid versus whether you finish 18th or 20th or 22nd or 24th?
Well, it pays a lot better to finish 18th than it does 24th, so I do care about that. And the flow and the process at the shop in terms of knowing rolls and ironing that stuff out, when that stuff's probably gonna be a little more critical for the next gen car. That was the reason why why Jeff and TJ wanted to go run a competitive effort in 21, to make sure they are not learning those things when the playing field is somewhat more neutral than it is now. But there's no reason why everybody on the team that they've hired are experienced. They've done it before. They've worked at organizations that know the deal. So it's not like a new thing with everybody's just rookies walking around not knowing what the hell to do. It's guys that have been a part of race winning organizations, and I feel like I'm getting better each and every year, learning the tracks. And, I feel like I can take a car and finish, several spots higher than what it's capable of finishing on any given week. So, we're going to fine tune those processes in the shop throughout the year, but in terms of competition, there's no reason, there's nothing that can hinder our ceiling as much as it's just a matter of how much work we want to put in and how much we actually want to go out and get some partners new and bring them into the fold to continue to build that budget so we have more cash to race off of. It's still no matter if there's a spending cap for new cars or this, whoever has the most money is still going to figure out how to go faster. So I'm just as incentivized to figure out that side to get new brands and partners into the fold as I am to drive that number 7 Chevy Camaro as fast as possible.
Thank you.
And our final question is from Jerry Jordan. His microphone is not working, so he submitted it. He asks about your recent trip to COTA, the Circuit of the Americas, where we'll be running next year. What kind of car did you drive? What did you think of the track, and what did you learn?
It was going to be a Class 2 BMW, but we ended up running a Miata, and the Miata was a damn blast. Heel toe it and figure out how to shift, and it's got 6 gears, so that was like 2 more than I was used to because I didn't know that there was an extra couple gears over there. But I think for me, there's no question for me that road courses are probably the most particular area I need to work on in terms of just my experience because I haven't done it. So I went down there with a buddy, Derek Ware, who had the cars, and I think that it just took that learning curve of learning the track, learning the braking zones. It took that away. So that way, when I get down there, I'll just get used to driving that heavy cup car around, as opposed to learning what the apex of the corners are. So it was a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to going down there. If we race Miatas down there in May, I'd be in pretty damn good shape. But unfortunately, we don't. So I'll have to learn how to wrestle that big ass cup car around Coda. Looking forward to the challenge.
Good deal. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time. And Lee Spencer wanted me to pass along. She said that she'd donate $50 to a food bank of your choice if you let Randy use the Floby on you.
You have to put like 3 more zeros behind that, Lee, because Floby's not touching this beautiful muff. Ain't happening.
Good deal. Well, thanks for taking the time to join us, and happy holidays to you. We'll see you in 2021. All
right, guys. Have a good Christmas. Talk to y'all soon.
Take care now. As a reminder, we will have audio and video of this availability on NASCARmedia.com, the new NASCARmedia.com. And we look forward to you joining us for some media availability later this week. Take care now. Bye-bye.